Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with 14 fun-filled discs of flute concertos. Kill me now, please. And concertante works featuring Emanuel Pahud, who's a wonderful flutist. Fabulous. But, you know, this little 14 CD box, which is on Warner, it tells us something about the classical music business, and I don't know what the answer to this issue is. You can have a pile of pianists, a pile of violinists, but you can't have a pile of flutists. I mean, the world of classical music historically has had, in the modern era, two flutists. Jean-Pierre Rampal on Sony and James Galway on RCA. They recorded the whole flute repertoire and then some. I mean, lots of stuff was written for them. So there it is. Wonderfully played. I mean, they are supremely wonderful artists. There were other fantastic flutists fluting around, that have attempted to be equally interesting. I mean, Bis promoted Sharon Bezali, and, every label had its flute person tootling along on their flute. But there is a limit. There's just a limit. I don't know what the limit is, but I know there's a limit to how much flute stuff you can tolerate. Any sane person who is not a flute player can tolerate. And have we reached it? Well, I don't know. I've got the big Rampal box. I've got the big Galway box. And now we have this much smaller Emanuel Pahud box. He was also a flutist with the Berlin Philharmonic. They all go through the Berlin Philharmonic for some reason. I have no idea why. They're not better than other flutists, but there you are. So you get your little bookie, and the bookies have these are original, original jackets. Yes, they're lovely. So let's just see what's in here, and you can decide whether or not you need it. I'll just tell you straight out, the performances are terrific. I mean, he's as great a flutist as has ever, licked metal. He's very, very good. So that's all you need to know. Vivaldi, Flute Concertos, Opus 10. So you get all 6 of those suckers, including La Tempesta di Mare, La Notte, and Il Gardellino, pardon me, the goldfinch, or whatever that thing is. And then a couple more flute concertos besides. Then we have, does it say who else is playing? Like what orchestra? No, there's not a word. All right, let's do it. Yeah, so much for that. So much for the booklet. Let's do it disc by disc. I'll start with this clump. Does this tell us? Yes, thank you. The Australian Chamber Orchestra under Richard Tognetti. It just so helps when you know who the performers are. All right, so that's the Vivaldi thing. That's disc 1. Disc 2 is the Berlin Baroque Solisten under Rainer Kussmaul. And we have Rainer Kissmouth. Okay, whatever. Telemann. Bits of Tafel Musik and other flute goodies. Telemann wrote crap loads of flute music. Bach. We've got JSB, the Orchestral Suite number 2. And C.P.E. Bach, his 3 flute concerti, which are wonderful pieces. Also arranged for harpsichord. All of his concerti were either keyboard works or arranged for keyboard or vice versa. Anyway, so let's see, the Berlin Baroque Solisten and the Kammerakademie Potsdam with Trevor Pinnock. And that's very good. It's just, these are terrific people. He's not, playing a Baroque flute, I don't think. It just says flute. And here we've got Flute, the Flute King, music from the court of Frederick the Great. Oh my, yes, and everyone wrote just Googles of flute stuff for Frederick, who was not the best flutist, according to C.P.E. Bach. And let's see, we've got his flute concerto in A major, which we already saw. It was right over here, wasn't it? No, it's different. It's Vodken 168, Vodken 166, 169. Okay, fine. So 168 is on here. The last thing in the world you need is more of the same, right? Work over and over again with the same flute player. Benda and Frederick the Great's own flute concerto number 3, And quants. Of course, you have to have quants. This is also Pinnock and the Potsdam Folk. So there's that. Then we have Revolution. Oh, wow. Just what you want when you have a revolution, a flute concerto. We've got Francois de Vienne, flute concerto number 7. He wrote 7. He probably wrote 20. Luigi Gianella, flute concerto number 1. There's some interesting repertoire here by people you've never heard of. Then you listen and you realize why you've never heard of them. Gluck, flute concerto in G major, which probably isn't by Gluck. It's opus 4. And then Pleyel and Antoine Hugo. So there's that. So that's his first release on CD, some of that stuff. Some of it. Let's see. Concertante, Les Vents Français, wind music. Wind music by De Vienne, the Symphonia Concertante for flute, oboe, bassoon, horn, and orchestra. And Danzi, Symphonia Concertante, and Pleyel, Symphonia Concertante. So that's cool. This also says that it has Mozart, but I see no Mozart. There's no Mozart. Of the Munich Chamber Orchestra under Daniel Jiggleberger. That's what it looks like. Yes, Jiggleberger. It's probably Giggleberger if it's German. Anyway, yes, not a word. There's no Mozart here. That's interesting. Let me just see if they did something over here for disc 6. I doubt it, but you never know. Disc 6. Disc 6. Concertante. Nope. No Mozart. How interesting. Although the Symphony Concertante with flute is actually on disc 8. So it could be that they just mixed everything up a bit. I have no idea. Anyway, so that goes there. Then we've got Mozart, of course, flute concertos and concerto for flute and harp. They're done as well as that ever gets done. It's the Berlin Phil and Abbado conducting. And what's this one? Mozart. Yeah, here's the Mozart thing. The Mozart Symphony Concertante for flute, oboe, horn, and bassoon, which really isn't by Mozart, or at least not all of it is by Mozart. I remember hearing it the first time and just saying to myself, that's not Mozart. There's no way. And then we've got Michael Haydn's Flute Concerto number 2 and Leopold Hoffmann's Flute Concerto in D major, formerly attributed to Haydn. Well, that was nice of them, wasn't it? So there's that. Now let's get the next clump. Here's the remaining clump. Fantasy, A Night at the Opera. So with the Rotterdam Philharmonic under Nazgul Sneget-Jegen, whatever his name is, Yannick Nézet-Séguin, there we go. Verdi, Fantasy on Traviata, and Rigoletto Fantasy, and Tchaikovsky's, Lenski's aria paraphrase from Eugene Onegin, arranged by various people. Fantasy on Der Freischütz, Orphée et Eurydice Minuet, Dance of the Blessed Spirits, Robert Fobbs, Fantasy on Mozart's Magic Flute, he was born in 1939, he's still around. Bizet, Carmen, Entr'acte. Well, that's pretty. That's that lovely, pretty, thing for flute and harp. Francois Born, Fantasy Brillante on Carmen. And Bizet, L'Arlésienne Suite number 2, the Minuet. So that's with the Rotterdam Phil. Yeah, okay, fine. And some things have 2 flutes. Oh, really, what could be better than having one? Have several. What's this thing? Disc 10. Mozart and Flute in Paris. Is there any Mozart? No. Why do they say things like that? Mozart and Flute in Paris. So we've got music by Philippe Saint-Saëns, Chaminade, Poulenc's Flute Sonata, orchestrated by Barclay, which is wonderful. It's a beautiful arrangement. It makes a lovely little concerto. Fauré's Fantasy and Saint-Saëns' Tarantella. So why Mozart? I don't know why where does Mozart keep showing up? I don't understand. The Nielsen Flute Concerto. Fabulous work. Fabulous performance. Cacciatorian Flute Concerto, which is Rampal's arrangement of the Violin Concerto. And Ibert's Flute Concerto. So this is Simon Rattle with the Berlin Phil and the Tone Hollow Orchestra of Zurich with David Zinman in some of these suckers. So that's fun. And then we've got Dreamtime. Dreamtime. It has a title. Penderecki Flute Concerto, Concerto for Flute and Chamber Orchestra, the Reinecke Flute Concerto, which is also a wonderful work. It doesn't get much play. Mozart, Andante in C major for flute and orchestra. Busoni, Divertimento for flute and small orchestra. Reinecke, Ballade for flute and orchestra. And Takemitsu, I Hear the Water Dreaming for flute and orchestra, with the Munich Radio Symphony and Ivan Repusic, I think is how you pronounce it. Oh, who cares? Let's see, what do we got here? Just some flute concertos. Dalvabi, Michael Jarrell, and Matthias Pincher, modern flute concerti, where you get to do things that the flutists never dreamed of and probably should be illegal. Anyway, so it's Orchestre Philharmonique de Radio France under Peter Oetvisch and Pascal Raffet and Matthias Pincher, so that's nice and authentic. And then Gubaidulina, the Canticle of the Sun, music for flute, strings, and percussion. It says the Canticle of the Sun. Oh, that's not on here, because the only thing that was on here is the music for flute, strings, and percussion. The Canticle of the Sun, of course, is not a flute piece. That was on the Gubaidulina album. And this is Alexandre Desplat, Peleus et Mélisande, Symphony Concertante. Well, that's interesting for flute and percussionists and let's see, Rostropovich is conducting, and Alexandre Desplat is conducting the Orchestre Nationale de France. And that, my friends, is 14 CDs of flute music that you desperately, desperately need. I know it's sounding cynical. I'm being very cynical. I get it. Because there's a lot of artistry at work here. And, wonderful flute playing. But it's a flute. I mean, what can I tell you? It's a flute. So you have to decide for yourself if that fact weighs heavily in your purchasing plans. You can be sure that the performances are terrific. It's just not a question, as I said. The question is, what do you need? What do you want? What's going to give you pleasure? It's entirely your call. I make no judgment. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.